Let's keep the conversation going. Please welcome to the stage our next speaker, Sarah Wright. She's founder and CEO of Utah Clean Energy. Sarah, great to be with you here today. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
So you just announced that you're retiring, leading the organization that you founded, Utah Clean Energy, after 25 years. Congratulations, firstly.
Thank you.
If you had to choose just one, and I realize that might be hard, but we're in the business of smart brevity here at Axios. If you had to choose just one, what's the single biggest thing that changed in Utah energy over the last 25 years?
I would say opening the door to solar development and having it scale.
You know, I wrote an article today in Future of Energy, which, reminder, if you're not signed up, you need to go do so, about how we're actually lowering the emissions of fossil energy. And the timeline that happened over the last 25 years is almost exactly aligned with the growth of solar, which we talked about earlier, 0.1% to 14%. So what was the cause of that? Was it subsidies, the market?
I think in Utah there's multiple factors. Back when PURPA was the way to move projects, and I won't get too wonky, but
PURPA is a very long acronym that we don't necessarily need to say, but.
But anyway, we worked on a case with another developer. We won, they were able to get good capacity payments, and that opened the door to utility scale solar, and then that combined with the declining prices and incentives is what took it to scale.
The AI energy boom we've heard a lot about today already has been one of the last big trends that you're dealing with in this role. What impacts are you seeing on the ground for this rush of power? Is it going to be a net positive for clean energy, or could we see coal staying online longer and a lot of new natural gas being built?
You know, I think there's a lot of decisions that will make that happen, that will lead to what happens in the future, but my hope is because solar storage, maybe combined with a little gas, and as geothermal comes on, that's what will fill that void. There might be a little time when those hyperscalers use fossil fuels, but I hope they don't.
What did you make of the senator's comments? I found them quite interesting about how the hyperscalers can afford to bring on more expensive electricity and maybe could even, in that way, accelerate new technologies like advanced nuclear power and geothermal. Is that a trend that you're also seeing?
Well, I don't know if we're seeing it on the ground yet, but we definitely could. And I think that the fact that geothermal is 24/7 baseload power, and Utah is set to be the first state to have the enhanced geothermal projects where they drill down 1-2 miles. I think once we see that happen the first time, the hyperscalers will go for that.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about geothermal. You know, it's a type of energy that, it's a very small percentage of the overall electricity mix in the US. It's one of the, here in Utah though, it's about 5%, which is bigger than most. How is it, what are its attributes that make it uniquely suited for something like a data center?
Sure, I mean, one thing I will say is that geothermal is kind of the old new kid on the block, because when I started this work in 2001, the only utility scale power plant, renewable power plant, was a 30 megawatt geothermal project. And so geothermal is 24/7 power, and that now they're being able to dispatch it and structure it, dispatch it so that it can serve the grid in a really great way. Data centers are pretty much base load, flat load 24/7, and so geothermal matches perfectly with that. And if you do geothermal, solar and storage, some wind, not as much wind in Utah, you have a great clean source to provide the data centers. But it's also the same mix for all customers. I mean, there's so much that geothermal, solar, and storage can do in the state.
Do you think on geothermal do you think it's a positive that there's some crossover between more fossil energy? There's a lot of, I think Fervo, the head of Fervo used to work at Shell, for example. Do you think that the expertise you get from these companies can be applied to this clean energy? Now, the addendum here is that we did see that to some extent with, say, offshore wind, but offshore wind is kind of down for the count at the moment, and geothermal seems to be on a positive swing. Do you think that crossover of expertise is ultimately going to help the energy technology, or could it backfire in terms of concerns, local concerns about drilling and fracking, which I understand is also part of geothermal?
I think it's definitely a positive that they're able to take all the advancements that we've made in the oil and gas drilling industry and put them to geothermal. The company Fervo working here, you know, they recognize and they speak about their fracking, but they are also committed to doing it in a safe way. And so, and also the fact that it's being built in, you know, this big new plant is in Utah, a conservative red state, that I think that it's not going to run into the same barriers that offshore wind has run into.
So we've talked about the diversity of energy mix here in Utah, but that coal is still 45%. Now, I will say it came down from something like 75% over the last 15 years. So percent-wise, it's actually been a big decrease. You may have heard Chris and the senator talk about coal, and you actually in our prep call, you helped teach me about coal in the state and how prices are going higher for coal. What do you think should happen with coal in the state? I think we saw the senator kind of inch toward saying, maybe, you know, he was kind of deflecting my question about whether or not we need state laws keeping these plants open. But what do you think should be the path for coal in the coming years?
You know, I think that economics will make the decisions, and the statutes that have passed, the laws that have passed in Utah do have some room for looking at what's in the best interest of ratepayers. And so I think that as we might keep some of these plants open, but as we add more renewables, solar, wind, storage, geothermal, they will need to run less time. And I think we need to gain comfort with how the grid is going to operate as we transition to a cleaner and decarbonize that grid, because I started this work from a climate change perspective, and the economics are with us, the technologies are with us. So as soon as we can, you know, proof of concept that those plants should just go away, and then we have to work on with those communities and make sure that those communities that we've built our economy on have the ability to thrive.
You mentioned how you got into this work initially focused on climate change. We heard from Senator Curtis a moment ago about Republicans and climate change and how they approach the issue a little bit differently, and there's been this polarization that I think we're all extremely aware of. Do you think efforts like his are making a tangible difference for somebody who has been at this for a quarter of a century? It sounds so long when you say it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons we've been so successful, Utah Clean Energy, is we really work from a values-based perspective, and Senator Curtis is right there. He'll say, who doesn't want cleaner, more affordable, reliable energy? Who doesn't want to leave the world a better place for their kids and grandkids? So his engagement and bringing other conservatives along is a game changer.
So are you going to be riding off into the sunset after this job? Are you going to be moving to Scottsdale? Are you going to be recommitting to this cause in another way? Can you give us a little sense of what you might be up to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure exactly. I won't ride off into the sunset. I will take a break.
But this place has beautiful sunsets.
Yes, they do.
The sky.
Maybe I'll do that for a while, but I'll find my, my role so I can help moving climate and clean energy solutions.
So we are nearing our end of our time together, so we know what that means. We are moving to the rapid fire round. Would you rather support advanced nuclear power or fusion?
Advanced nuclear power.
And an addendum, I'm going to break my own rule here, but your organization doesn't really you haven't taken a position on nuclear power, is that correct?
That's correct.
What do you make of the senator's comments about how it's actually becoming a key role in addressing climate change?
I think it's fine, but it's always about 10 years out, and geothermal and the other solutions, and we haven't talked about efficiency yet, but efficiency is a huge, we have an all-electric net zero building. I think that right now it's 20% of the US's mix. It will maybe 20% going forward as we retire those plants, but we have other cleaner, cheaper, more readily available solutions at hand.
Okay, back to our regular Would You Rather programming. Would you rather lead a nonprofit 50 years ago or 50 years from now?
50 years from now.
You're rolling the dice on the future.
Yeah, yeah.
Would you rather live forever on the ski slopes or the Red Rocks?
Red Rocks.
This is definitely a summer crowd that we've had here so far. Would you rather change the past or see the future?
Change the past.
Oh, mixing it up. Well, with that, thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you.